Yes, I can see it.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So again, this is just the overview. We're going to create, I will start from this slide just to ensure everybody heard kind of what I originally had gone over. So the continuing competency is composed of, we ask everybody to create 2 specific learning goals each year. Goals should focus on learning, increasing knowledge and competence in their area of dietetic scope of practice. So we like to encourage everybody to focus in on their own scope of practice area rather than the broad scope of practice, to ensure that they're increasing their knowledge and competence in their area of practice. And that's for public trust and public protection. And then also, so then 2 goal examples would be between March 2018 and March 2019, I will increase my knowledge of evidence behind Canada's food guide. So we will see that one quite a bit this year because it is brand new. We'll either see the goal or learning activities related to it. And we should see it as dietitians. Everybody should be becoming knowledgeable in this area. And then also another goal would be between 2018 and 2019, I will increase my knowledge of workshop facilitation and the necessary skills of effective facilitators. So this one is very, I always get questions about non-traditional roles. And this one can, this one and many others actually, in the dietetic scope of practice, in our competencies, would kind of tie into many roles. So you may see something like that if people are in non-traditional roles, or if they are in traditional roles, this is still a very great skill to have. So then I'm just gonna kind of touch on, we also often talk about task-related goals versus learning goals. So a task goal would be between April 2018 and March 2019, I'm going to take a dietetic intern. So they're really not focusing on increasing their knowledge. They're just saying that this is an action I'm going to take, I'm going to do. So we really want people to focus in on increasing knowledge and skill in an area of practice. And then another example of a task-related goal is between April and March, I'm going to create a new dining standard in a long-term care setting. So again, talking about what they're going to create rather than what knowledge and skills they want to increase that may be enabling them to carry out this, this dining standard. So if we look at those 2 task-related goals and we want to turn them into learning goals, it may look like I'm going to increase my knowledge and skill in the area of preceptorship. And that would enable them to be able to successfully carry out a mentor-mentee relationship. And another idea, turning the second goal into a learning goal would be I'm going to increase my knowledge of dining standards best practice in a long-term care setting. So that's really, both of those are really focusing in on increasing knowledge and skill rather than carrying out a task. Does anybody have any questions about that? No. Again, if you have any questions throughout, please just unmute yourself and ask the question. I'd be happy to have it interactive as possible. Okay. So so continuing on, learning log components. So learning activities and learning outcomes related to goal 1 and 2. So we ask that everybody have learning outcomes and learning activities related to goal 1 and 2, as well as other. There is we don't have anything in place to say how many learning activities we should have related to each goal and to other. Some auditors like to see 3 or more related to each goal. It really depends on what type of learning activity they have. So if they have a 3-day workshop, then that may fulfill a goal. If they're reading 1 article, then that may not fulfill a goal. It's a good idea to look at impact on practice to see how much of an impact that learning activity had. that they've described in their impact on practice. But it is auditor discretion as to how you mark your audit based on what they provide. So yeah, but during any of your audits, if you have any questions, just send me an email. I can contact you via phone or email, and I'd be happy to work through any that you're having difficulty with. And then also another component is to include at least one learning activity and learning outcome related to acts as a reliable source of food and nutrition. So that does not have to be a goal, it's just a learning activity that needs to kind of tick that box. So under learning activity, people will put all different amounts and of information. So it could be the title of the learning activity, an author, the presenter, a journal name, a brief description of the learning activity or content, a website, etc. Basically anything identifying that it's a learning activity we take. The learning activity description is not a big deal. We really put a lot of emphasis on the learning outcome. So the learning outcome should really show an impact on practice. How did this learning impact the dietitian's practice, their day-to-day practice? Or how did they incorporate this new learning into practice? So here's the continuing competency audit. I did share this with everybody a few days ago or a couple of weeks ago. So the top section is in relation to the actual goals. So if there's 2 distinct goals or 1 distinct goal, and then if goals are learning goals, if goals are not learning goals, you skip the next section in that goal section. You go right down to the next section under the learning log. And then you'll see under learning log for goal 1, 2, and other, that it really focuses in on impact on practice. So it's not evident how learning impacted practice. It's somewhat evident, it's mostly evident, and it's clearly evident. So really that impact on practice learning outcome section is the most, holds the most weight with the continuing competency program. And then down towards the bottom there in learning log, there's 4 points if there's 1 learning activity related to food and nutrition. So generally we would see that, but some places where you wouldn't is if somebody's in an administrative role and they focus in on management and something, the management leadership, and they forget to include an other related to food and nutrition, so vitamins, minerals, texture diets, anything related to food and nutrition, then they would not get that point. And that's because a while back when the board created the CCP, they felt that we are all dietitians, so we should be maintaining somewhat up-to-date knowledge of food and nutrition. Okay, so we're gonna pull out our audits if you have them, and we're gonna go through the first example. If you don't have audits printed off, that's fine. You can just follow along and just kind of get a sense of how we generally go through and mark these. Does anybody have any questions up to this point? Okay, so for example 1, goal number 1. Oh, there's. Okay, so yeah, if you have any questions, just unmute yourself. I will send out the YouTube link with the PowerPoint to everyone. I can also send out the PowerPoint as a attachment. And if you have any questions, just unmute yourself and ask. Okay, so for the first audit, we're going to look at goal number 1. Does somebody have a question? Okay, so we're going to look at goal number 1. So I am going to complete the Certified Diabetes Educator Certificate. And goal number 2 is I'm going to implement Susie Q dining cart system into a long-term care setting. So do you feel they have 2 distinct goals, 1 distinct goal? What would does anybody have any input there? So generally, we would say that there are 2 distinct goals. One's about diabetes, and one's about a dining cart system. So that would be 2 distinct goals. So then, goals are learning goals. Does anybody want to comment on if they feel these are learning goals or if they're task-related goals?
Hello.
Yeah.
Nikki here. Yeah, I say 2 distinct goals, but the first one is a learning and the second one's a task.
Yeah, so actually both are considered tasks.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm going to complete the Certified Diabetes Educator Certificate.
Yes.
We don't necessarily, this person may be a whiz at diabetes education. They may know everything it is to know about diabetes. So we're not sure if they're increasing their knowledge and skill to get that certificate. Chances are they are. However, their goal is not written that they're looking to increase their knowledge and skill. Generally,
so if that's worded differently, as in the previous example, it becomes
yes,
just more clarification.
Yep.
About the learning out of it. Okay.
Exactly. However, if we went down to their learning log and we gained an understanding that they have increased their knowledge and skill, then as an auditor, you can use your discretion to change the top section. But when we go down to look at goal number 1 learning, it says they completed their certificate, their Certified Diabetes Educator course, and then they gained their CDE certificate. So they really did not explain that they've learned anything.
No. Okay.
Yeah. So, but if they said down bottom that they've increased their knowledge in various areas of diabetic care, and therefore they've implemented this new knowledge into practice, maybe even listed out what they've included in practice and how they've helped their patients through this, then you can go up and change that, because that first one is kind of, that may be a learning goal because they may have learned a ton. Or they may not have learned anything. And unfortunately, this program, we have to go on what's written on paper. It's not a practice assessment. We don't go into their practice to see what they're doing. It is all based on what they submit through this program. So yes, that was a great question. So the next, so we would go 0 and 0 for that. Goals are learning goals. And then because both were not learning goals, you would give 0 in the next section. Goals were specific, they were not learning goals, so we would give a 0 there. So she'd get, or this person, he or she would get 2 out of 6 there. So then going down to the learning log section. So we already kind of went over goal number 1 learning. No impact on practice. So we're really unsure as to if any information or any knowledge was gained. Some people might give a couple points because they've done it, they understand it. Some would give 0 points because there's absolutely no information shared. So you use your auditor discretion there as well. But some people might go between a 0 and a 4. It is not evident how learning impacted practice, and it is somewhat evident on how learning impacted practice or how learning would be integrated into practice. Based on what the learning outcome states here, I would say it is not evident how learning impacted practice. However, use your auditor discretion. If you feel that there's no way this person took a Certified Diabetes Educator certificate and did not increase their knowledge, then you can give a 2 points. But we really don't know what the impact was on their practice, or if they're even practicing in the area of diabetes. So the next goal is I'm going to implement, or the next learning is related to goal number 2. So they implemented a Susie Q dining cart into a long-term care setting. Implemented the new Susie Q dining carts Due to this new system, residents are receiving meals at a more favorable temperature, which has enhanced their quality of life. So it didn't say that she learned anything from this. She may have been a whiz on Suzy Q cards in the past, and she didn't increase her knowledge. However, it does have an impact on practice there. So there's no learning identified in the goal or the learning activity, but there is a little bit of impact on practice. So again, you use your auditor discretion as to how you want to score that. If I were auditing, I'd probably give you know, a 2, 3, or a 4, because there is impact on practice, but there's no learning identified. So yeah. And then for her others, she read an article. And then the other thing is that there's only one learning activity related to each of these goals. So that can kind of weigh in on your decision as to how many points you want to give there as well. Again, it's up to auditor discretion, because there is no, there is nothing to say in our current program how many activities a registrant should have to meet their goals. There's more of, if you as an auditor feel that that goal has been met through that learning activity, then you might want to give a few extra points in that category, or a few less points. So, and then there's they read an article on calcium needs in the senior population. And then reviewing this article gave me a better understanding of the calcium needs in the senior population. So there's not a ton of, they said what they learned, but they didn't say how they're going to use what they learned. So they didn't say, you know, now I'm going to provide supplementation, or, you know, kind of focus in on how much calcium, you know, various residents are getting in long-term care. So again, I'd probably give a 3, because there's no real impact stated there. But again, it's up to you as an auditor as to how you feel. And also, it seems like there is a lot of auditor discretion. It's not a black and white tool, unfortunately, but as you go through, you're going to get a sense of how to mark these. You're going to get a sense of, you're going to get some really great ones, and you're going to get some that, you know, kind of teeter. So you will get a kind of a sense of that auditor discretion as you go through. Right now, it sounds like there's nothing set in stone, but you will get a feel for it for sure.
Jennifer.
Yeah.
Tina. Earlier in the slide, you had said that the learning goals had to be like pertinent to our areas of practice.
Mm-hmm.
And I know this is just an example, and this probably isn't someone's complete entry, but like having a CDE certification and implementing a food cart, like one's at min and long-term care, and one's specific to a diabetes center. So how would we, like they're so far apart, how would we have some sort of background on where they practice?
So we don't. We can kind of get a sense of it. We stress that people should practice in their area of practice, but again, the CCP currently does not enforce that. We really encourage it.
Okay.
So yeah, there's nothing to say that we, you know, they can't go outside of their personal
As long as
practice.
one is strong in their area of practice and maybe another is more like an additional learning.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. We really encourage that people stay within their area of practice, but.
Okay.
Okay, so now we're gonna, does anybody have any questions about the first submission? And then also they will get one activity related to food and nutrition, so they will get that 4 points. So based on that, this would have been an unsuccessful submission just because there's no real focus on learning or impact on practice. Just seeing that there was a comment, but I can't get to it. And to just let everybody know as well that I'm actually Amanda. Jennifer owns the account, so that's why it says Jennifer, but I'm Amanda. So just so you have the right face, the right name. When you see Jennifer, you're gonna be like, that's not what I remember her looking like. So yeah. So to go on to the next example, I did see a comment click down on my screen. I can't get it right now. So if you want to unmute yourself and ask a question, by all means do so. Okay, so the next submission, example 2, and again, just as a kind of disclaimer, there are more unsuccessful submissions that we're going over today. In the last auditor survey, auditors said in the training that they would like to see more unsuccessful audits completed, just so they have a better idea as to how to proceed with the audits when they're doing them at home. So that's why you're seeing more unsuccessful than successful. But the successful ones you're going to be able to whiz through because they're pretty straightforward. Okay, so to complete a certified bariatric educator certification, so that's their goal, goal 1, no goal 2, and then they have completed and passed the, oh, I'm gonna get that. Wait just 1 second, I'm just reading. I'm just reading the question that's in the chat room. So it says, so is there a trick toward your goals with language that reflects learning, skill development, competency? So yeah, for sure. So really focus it in on learning. So between March and April, I'm going to increase my knowledge of whatever, or I'm going to increase my skills and competence in this area. So really focus on increasing your knowledge and skills on something. So for example, for this bariatric certification, I'm going to increase my knowledge and skills, or my knowledge, skills, competency in whatever area of bariatric education that you're looking to increase your knowledge and skills in. Maybe even by completing this course, you might be able to create 2 goals, and then through learning and reading articles through this course, you'll be able to meet those goals. So it's really focusing learning rather than completion of a task, to focus on increasing your knowledge of something in your area of dietetic practice. And I will share, you had mentioned that you did not receive the audit. I will share that again when I share the YouTube video. Okay, so so for example number 2, we're going to look at to complete the certified bariatric educator certification. So because there's only one goal, it's one distinct goal. So I would give a score of 1 there. Goals are learning goals. So it's really completing a task. It's not focused on increasing a knowledge or skill in that area. So, you know, they're not looking to increase their knowledge of the bariatric educator, something in that area. They may know everything there is to know about it. It's an easy certification to get because they are so knowledgeable in that area. So they decide to do it, kind of thing. Likely not the case, but unfortunately, like I said, this is the program and we have to kind of go on what's written on paper. So the learning activity is that they completed and passed the exam, and the learning outcome is completed this course, received credentials, and employed in this area. So there's not a ton of impact on, there's no real impact on practice. You know, a learning activity could have identified, you know, reviewed the study guide, the CBE study guide. That would be a learning activity, but just completing something is not a learning activity. What did you learn to kind of get to this point, kind of thing? What knowledge and skills did you increase to be able to complete this exam? So maybe, you know, if the study guide was their learning activity, and their learning outcome was this new knowledge allowed me to pass this certification, and now I am able to translate this new knowledge to patients in my clinic or in the clinic I work in or something like that. That would be more of an impact on learning. It would be focused on learning. Yeah. So for that critical reflection of goal number 1, I would give about a 2 because we're really digging in to try to figure out if something, if they've learned something, if they have any impact on practice. We're assuming they're putting their knowledge into practice, but it's not identified. So for that 2 points, it is an assumption for sure. Critical, so they did not have a goal number 2, so you would give a 0 in the goals section for that. The goals were not learning goals, so basically they'd get the 1 point up top for one distinct goal, 0 for learning goals and 0 for specific goals. Critical reflection related to goal number 1, there's very little, so maybe a 2. And then critical reflection of goal 2 and other, there was none, so you'd give a 0. I would definitely give a 4 for the acts as a reliable source of current food and nutrition, just because this course is based on food nutrition. I would think there's some food and nutrition within the course. But again, it's up to your own discretion if that's what you want to do. So this person would have gotten a 7 out of 40. And that 2 points that I would have given is again an assumption of there must have been some increase in knowledge and skill. Does anybody have any questions about this one?
I do. It's Nikki.
Yeah.
Is this rubric available to us all and I have missed it somewhere?
Yep. It's on our website under Continuing Competency Program.
Okay.
And I believe Jennifer had sent it out in a couple of emails over the last couple of years as well, just to kind of let everybody know. And it was also included in a CCP webinar we've done the last couple of years as well for for everybody. So, and I understand how it's easy to miss attachments and emails and stuff. So that's why we really try to encourage people to be auditors as well as send it out and encourage people in any feedback as well. Anybody who's received feedback, there's a link or it identifies that this is available on our website. So we're trying to let everybody know about that because definitely I feel people, if they have this, then you kind of audit yourself before you submit. It'd be very easy for, it would be easier. But yes, it is available and people, we are trying to share it as best as we can. Okay, so we will move on to goal number 3. They are getting better from here. But these are very real examples. The course and certification has changed in these examples, but I've certainly seen goals last year that reflected the first 2. So it's not unusual to get this, but there are a lot of successful submissions as well. Okay, so goal number 3, or example number 3, sorry. I will increase my knowledge of dementia as it relates to overall nutrition status, and I will become a more confident manager. So goal number 1, so there are 2 distinct goals, so I would give 2 points in 2 distinct goals. Goals are learning goals. I would definitely give, if it were me auditing, I would give them 1 for a learning goal for goal number 1. I would give them 1 point there because it is focusing in on increasing their knowledge. For goal number 2, they want to become a more confident manager. They didn't say that they wanted to increase their knowledge and skills to become a more confident manager. Their knowledge and skills of leadership, of whatever aspect they feel that they're lacking in. So therefore, I would give a 0 for goal number 2. And the goal number 1 is specific, so I would give a 1 there. So, and then I would give a goal number 2 a 0. So I would give them 4 points in that first section there. Does anybody, would anybody do anything differently there, or do you have any comments, questions about that? Okay, so we'll go on to the learning activities for goal number 1. So reviewed an article, relationship between dementia and nutrition-related factors and disorders, an overview. And this article provided an overview of how some nutrient deficiencies may increase cognitive impairment. And then there's also another learning activity related to goal number 1, and it says reviewed article, discomfort in nursing home patients with severe dementia in whom artificial nutrition and hydration is foregone. And this article looked at providing feeding tubes to people who have advanced dementia with oral intake declines. The information found in this study will assist me in supporting residents, families, and care teams in information sharing. So based on those 2 learning activities, does anybody want to kind of let me know how they feel that they would provide feedback or points to this goal number 1? So I guess in April 3rd learning activity, there's not much impact on practice there. And then the October 13th, they have a bit more of an impact on practice, as they will assist in supporting families and residents when they come to this decision.
Jennifer, my first instinct as you were going through that, I think I would go somewhere between somewhat evident and mostly evident, because I think the one learning was really good, but then the other one was, it wasn't as strong.
Yeah, exactly. That would be a very fair mark to provide, for sure. So maybe a 6 out of 10.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question though?
Yeah.
Sarah, so we're not looking for people to really have a specific amount of goals. So is it fair to decrease a grade? So for example, the October 13th learning activity was done really well. And to me, when I read that one, I probably would have been closer to an 8 or a 10. Is it fair to really decrease that score based on the fact that the other one wasn't done as well? Because some people could only write one goal, right? And if they'd only done that one goal, maybe they would have gotten an 8 or a 10, but where that second one wasn't as well. Is it fair to decrease that score?
So it's, again, up to auditor discretion. That one article, I don't know if that's sufficient learning for a whole year, but like you said, we don't have a certain number of points or articles or learning activities that we ask everybody to have annually. So again, it's up to auditor discretion. People have been given feedback in the past that auditors felt that, or the auditor felt that that one learning activity was it was basically harder to see how they would meet their goal by that one learning activity.
Right.
So, I mean, it is up to auditor discretion. If you want to, because you will see some really, really well done submissions. So if, yeah, it is up to auditor discretion. I feel that, one learning activity per goal for 12 months, I don't know if that shows that you're up to date and current in your practice.
Tina, again, when I read, sorry, my phone. When I read that one as well, if you look at dementia and the amount of patients that you probably tube feed, I would feel that the percentage of those patients with dementia, that would only impact a tiny percent of the patients I might see with dementia.
Exactly.
So if I'm looking for bigger impact on my patient base, I would want some other activity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess my thought was not necessarily just like one goal, but I mean, even if there was 3 or 4 learning activities related to one goal and 2 or 3 of them were really well written and one wasn't, what your thoughts would be on that. But I can understand what you're saying, that it is up to the discretion of the auditor.
So,
thank you.
Amanda, it's Elaine here. And so just to chime in on that, my sort of initial gut reaction is reading 2 articles isn't a whole lot. There's no sort of discussion with colleagues or maybe at a seminar of some kind or going to hear an expert talk about this in some way, shape, or form. I don't know. Reading 2 articles to me doesn't seem like a whole lot. That's just me.
Yeah, exactly. So to kind of go back to the first question, if there were 3 or 4 with great impact on practice and one does not have a good impact on practice, articles related to one goal, yes, definitely that one that's not a strong impact on practice, but then there's 3 or 4 that have a great impact on practice, I would definitely provide feedback based on, if they have a strong 4 articles, yes, provide, the 8 or the 10. If they have 2 articles and one has, a kind of a medium impact on practice, such as one that we see here, I initially thought to give the score of 4, but again, a 6 is fine as well. But it's really to try to look at the overall package as well and see, if you feel that this amount of learning, amount of impact on practice makes them you feel that this would maintain their level of competence in their area of practice. So that's basically, this is our tool to try to identify that people are increasing their knowledge and skill and increasing their competence in their area of practice. So when you kind of go in and look at this, to have that in the back of your mind, that this is the only tool that the NSDA has to ensure people are maintaining competence and increasing competence for public protection. Does that make sense? But they're great questions. So I just had a question. I think it's a private question. So the audit rubric is found on our NSDA website under dietitians and then competency program, and then you'll see a link there for the audit tool. And I also had a question, if auditors get audited about their audits. Generally, no. This year we have a ton of auditors sign up, which is amazing, and thank you very much. So we will be giving every audit to 2 auditors to audit. So, and then we'll be taking an average of those audits. But if anybody has questions during your audits, please let me know, because I'd be happy to help you through any audits that you're struggling with, or that you just want a second set of eyes to look at. Or I can set you up, if you'd rather sit down with somebody in your area where you can sit down and work through them together. Just let me know if that's something that you are interested in, and I'll try to set you up with another auditor and you can work through your audits together. Okay, so moving on to goal number 2, they reviewed an article, presentation skills and how to fake it till you make it. Okay, and then this article provided me with tips on how to carry out a successful presentation. I use these tips when interacting in team meetings. Upon self-reflection, I feel I have improved my presentation and collaboration skills. So they say that they've increased their skills in this one. So goal number 2, again, they met with staff to discuss concerns regarding food safety. Discussing this information provided improved food safety in the facility I work in. So really not focused in on their goal, and it's not on her learning, she's looking at the learning of others. So this tool should be focused on her learning or his learning as a dietitian, rather than the learning of others. This is a tool to show what a dietitian has learned. So then they reviewed an article. So this article provided me with the tools to better communicate in one-on-one sessions as well as in group sessions. I feel I am more clear and concise in conversations when needed and elaborate on topics in other situations when needed. So that was some impact on practice there. And then she provided a presentation to food service staff. So she observed food service staff using improved communication skills when carrying out their daily duties and resolving conflicts. So again, she's focusing that learning activity on the learning of others rather than on her own learning. If she did increase her knowledge there, the presentation should have been a learning outcome. So she could have written an article or read an article that increased her communication or the positive impact of good communication that increased her knowledge. So she should have written the presentation as a learning outcome and then how she increased her knowledge as the learning activity. Does that make sense? Providing a presentation is not increasing her knowledge, but she may have to increase her knowledge in order to create that presentation. So that would be the learning activity. Is that confused? Does that make sense? Or so overall for this one, there's a couple there that has no impact on practice, a couple that has a little bit of impact on practice. So I would probably give a 4 or a 6 there as well, kind of similar to the last one, because there is some impact, but overall for a whole annual learning log, it's still a little bit weak in terms of learning for the whole year. And then she has one activity related to other, and it says that she created a nutrition board at her place of employment and posted resources and educating others on various nutrition topics. So focusing again on increasing the knowledge and skills of others rather than herself. So I would give a 0 there, but again, auditor discretion if you feel she's increased her knowledge to be able to create that nutrition month board, then that's fine. You can give a couple of points, but again, use your auditor discretion there, but there is really no impact on practice identified. So unfortunately, because of the program, and we don't go in and look at practice, this is kind of our tool to identify how they're increasing their knowledge. We kind of have to go with sort of what's written there. She does have some learning activities related to acts as a reliable source of food and nutrition, so I would give her the 4 points there, and then we would tally it up at the bottom. Does everybody agree with that audit and that evaluation? Does anybody have any questions? Okay, so we will move on to the third one. Okay, so we'll go on to example number 4. I'm just going to check the chat again. So I'm at a member is asking if I can hear them talk, and I can't. Is your mic unmuted? So unfortunately, I can't hear you. However, after the webinar, we can, if anybody can't hear me, then after the webinar, if you have any questions that you'd like to chat about, just send me your number and I will give you a call right after. Okay, so we're going on to example number 4. So I'm going to increase my knowledge and skills in preceptorship, and I will increase my knowledge of dining standards in long-term care. So they're both distinct goals, they're both focused on learning, and they're both specific. So I would give this person a 2 on each of those 3 sections in that goal section there, the goal evaluation, for a total of 6. And then for the critical reflection related to goal number 1, so they gained an understanding of how to use good communication, including active listening when interacting with an intern, incorporate this new learning into practice when I provide a preceptorship to my first intern in September. I feel that this learning enhanced their communication and the intern's overall placement experience. So great impact on practice in that first learning activity. The second learning activity, by reviewing the document prior to preceptoring my first intern, I was more knowledgeable of how to identify problems that could arise within our relationship. So again, really good impact on practice. And then another one is I incorporated these learnings into practice in September 2017 when I entered my first preceptor role. I feel this new knowledge allowed me to better understand the preceptor-preceptee relationship and offered valuable tools which I used to provide an optimal learning environment for the intern. So all great impact on practice there. She really showed how she incorporated, or he incorporated, this learning into practice. So if I were to provide a score for that category for goal number 1, I would give a 10 out of 10 because it is clearly evident how they use this new learning in practice. And a lot of auditors kind of use the 3+ rule. You know, they give a 10 if they have good impact on practice and 3 or more learning activities. Again, it depends on the magnitude of the learning activity as well, but that's kind of a rule that, or kind of an idea, I guess, not a rule, but that some auditors will use to identify how many points, or if they're going to give full points kind of thing. So goal number 2, the learning is, I'm now more knowledgeable regarding client-centered care and food service. Because of this document, I have ordered more food items to be available on the unit level for residents if they would like more options at meal or snack. So they read the research and then because of that, they are now including more snacks and meals to residents, or more snack options and meal options to residents because it's best practice. The next one is, these included, reviewing this document increased my understanding of the various considerations when reviewing dining standards in long-term care. These included the need to continuously update meal cards and likes and dislikes, dishes, etc. I have included many of these areas discussed into daily practice and have seen an improvement in resident enjoyment at meals. So again, clear impact on practice. And then the third one there is, this meeting increased my understanding of the practices important to residents during meals. By incorporating these items into mealtime, residents have reported an improved dining experience. So again, she identified that she's increased her knowledge and how she's, or he will incorporate this knowledge and skill into their practice area. So I would likely give a 10 out of 10 on that one as well. And then they also have other, so she's increased her, or he's increased their understanding. They have a better understanding of these tests and can better discuss the results and help clients sort through these results. So kind of going back, it looks like she's in long-term care. However, some people in long-term care also do private practice, so it may be relevant to their practice as well, or it's a topic of interest and it's other. So, the next one for this person is the learning activity related to food and fluid in sports. It's increased their understanding of the importance of fluid and electrolytes when engaging in competitive sports and the importance of meal composition and timing. I incorporated this new knowledge into practice when providing nutrition advice to university sports teams. So again, clear impact on practice. She has incorporated this learning and she's now giving it to, she's now providing this information to sports teams. And then the jurisprudence e-learning module. These learning modules allow me to better understand my legal obligation as a dietitian. As a result of this learning, I have a better understanding of how to proceed when ethical dilemmas present themselves. So again, clear impact on practice. So I would likely give another a 10 out of 10 there. And there was information related to food nutrition as well. So the sports as well as the hypersensitivity testing. So I'd give it a 4 and I would give that person a 40 out of 40. Does anybody have any questions about that last one or any of the examples or any other questions? Okay. So for some next steps and what to expect, I'm hoping to get the packages mailed out between April 1st and the 19th. So as people renew after the renewal deadline of March 1st, so April 1st, I will start printing the continuing competency programs, getting them all ready to send off. And I hope to have that done by the 19th of April. If there are late submissions, because some people may fail to renew by March 31st, so then there's a grace period of May 15th. So all submissions are in by May 15th. But if you receive them, as we receive them, we will mail them out. But if you are an auditor who's going to receive a late submission, I will email you and let you know. And then once you've completed, once you receive the submission, we're asking that everybody returns them to the NSDA by May 3rd. I will send it out in the mail with a return envelope, stamped envelope for you to return them back to the NSDA. You can also drop by and drop them off at the NSDA office if you pass the NSDA office and it's easier for you, but you don't need to do that. You can just put them in the mail. It's up to you, whatever's easier. If you have any auditing related questions, you can send me an email. If you prefer to chat about it, just send me an email with your phone number. I'll let you know a few times that I'm available and we can set up a meeting. If you'd like to come into the NSDA office, again, I can set up a time that we can meet to kind of go through some. And then once all audits are completed, we send out an auditor survey to ask the auditors for any information they'd like to provide to us regarding the process or any tips, tricks, anything that you'd like to see changed in the future. Yeah, then we would love to hear about it. Other than that, I don't feel there's much else to share. I will send out the YouTube video to everybody. I will send out the PowerPoint to everybody. And I will send out the audit tool again via email. And if anybody has had an address change, I am starting to get the package, the envelopes together to be ready for renewal. If you've had an address change and you haven't updated your NSDA profile, can you please send me your new address, because I am getting ready to print those within the next day or two. And I'd love to know if you've had a change in address. And if your address is about to change, once that change has happened, to let me know. Or if you know that it's going to be changed for April 1st, then you can send your new address along as well. Does anybody have any questions?
Are you able to hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, well, this is weird because I didn't do anything different.
Oh, really?
It's Leela. I'm just wondering, I had these questions came up when you were just doing the last couple of pages. Why for instance, giving a presentation wouldn't be a learning activity?
Because generally you're the knowledge source in that activity. In presenting a presentation, you have the knowledge that you're sharing with other people rather than you're increasing your own knowledge during that presentation time. So that 1 hour that you're providing that presentation, generally speaking, people are not increasing their own knowledge. They're increasing the knowledge of others.
So then would it be more increased knowledge of X by reading whatever, and then the outcome was the presentation?
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
they just needed to be reversed.
Exactly.
And the other thing, when you audit, I don't remember getting mine back with any kind of feedback or anything. Is it just you passed and you've got your membership, or there was a problem with your whatever you call it?
CCP. Yeah, so basically, we audit about 130 submissions a year.
Okay.
We have about 620 or 650 people renew and submit submissions. Of that, we randomly select 130-ish. It's I think it's 15 or 20% of the population of our registrants. So if you're selected for auditing, your submission is pulled and sent to an auditor, and then you would get a letter in the mail throughout the summer, maybe into early fall, saying what your submission results were.
Okay, so then you do get feedback.
Yes, but if you haven't been chosen to be audited, you wouldn't get that feedback.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, thanks.
Does anybody else have any questions? And again, if questions come up, send me an email, or we can set up a time to chat, or a meeting if you'd prefer to meet in person. Yeah, because sometimes I even find, I mean, I've been doing it for a few years, and I even find some submissions challenging. So it's always nice to have somebody to kind of talk it over with if you are having a challenging submission. Okay, so if there's no other questions, then we will end it here. Again, if questions come up, just let me know. And I will get these mailed out as quickly as possible. I'm trying to get ahead of the game, so we will get them mailed out and to you in a timely manner, and hopefully to get them back to registrants on time as well. So thank you everybody for joining today. Sorry for the technical difficulties up front, and I look forward to talking with everybody and interacting with everybody again very soon.